Mr. Robinson, you talk about, quotes, these problems. What are these problems? And Mr. Mughal, respond as and when you want to.
The problem of Saudi-funded sects of Islam in this country, Salafi, Wahhabi, the madrasas, the non-integration, terrorism, the spread of Sharia law, attacks on non-Muslims by Muslims, youth. I've got a video here, I don't know if you've seen it, flying around the internet, which is from Sunday. And the children's families have just rang us. And I spoke to the father this morning. His children are 13 and 14. They're standing at a bus stop waiting for a bus. They've been approached by 15 Muslims, told that it's a Muslim area, and they've been attacked with cricket bats. And it's all on camera. The video's flying around. These are the attacks. This is happening across the country. I've uploaded in the last 2 days a 53-year-old man beaten by a gang of Muslim youth and hospitalised, completely unprovoked. That's in Blackburn. Another one in Bolton. These are the issues that there are serious issues. There is a hostility coming from sections of the Islamic community. Of course, it's not all of them. Of course, not all sects are problems. But they have to admit the problem in order to solve the problem. If you can't identify it, you're not going to fix it. By keep pretending that the country's like a multicultural love nest, when it's not. There are some serious issues.
Mr. Mughal.
I think we can acknowledge that actually our country is a melting pot, and that's a very, very positive thing. Tommy mentioned a range of issues. I mean, integration is one area of work. Terrorism is a separate area of work, but there are confluence points in terms of integration, as well as people feeling alienated. That means that they may be manipulated to do very nasty things in our society. So integration work is one element of a lot of support, investment, a lot of work in communities. But the terrorism angle is where I think the focus should be. If we're talking about violence, if we're talking about people who are manipulated to do violent things in our communities, that needs to include the Islamist side, those who will support the Al-Muhajirun, as well as those on the far right, as well as those who may be on the far left, those animal rights activists who try to foment hate in our community. If we're going to look at this issue, let's look at it in that manner. But I also say this, that actually Tommy talked about Saudi-funded. The majority of the funding now is developing within this country, and I think it's only right and fair that Muslim communities develop their own identity, a British Muslim identity which is unique, which feels proud of its diversity, which feels proud of the freedom of right to speak, which feels proud of trying to alienate and isolate those who think that their vision, their homeland is in another country. It's not. It's here in Britain, and in a very diverse and tolerant Britain.
You talk about tolerance. If the video that Tommy Robinson has mentioned, if it is true, and I'm not suggesting it is, we'll take it. How do you respond to that?
Well, you know, the fact is that anyone who conducts criminality in these in issues like this needs to feel the full force of the law. The fact is nobody can go around and call somebody racist words against them because they are white, black, brown, etc. It's not acceptable in our society. Conversely, with our work and in our group, there are Muslim women and other individuals who suffer attacks because of Islamophobia. All of them are unacceptable. What we need to say, if there are people conducting violence, or if there are people going around areas and telling women you can't wear a short skirt because this is a Muslim area, this is unacceptable. This is a country where people should feel free from fear. And I would say, wherever we find those individuals, it's time to work with the police and work with the intelligence agencies to try to oust some of these characters.
Tommy Robinson, you can't wish to hear more than that, can you?
When you say Islamophobia, I believe there is Islamophobia in this country. I believe it's a phobia by the police force and the government to tackle extremist Islam and Islamic issues. You say that the police come down and they tackle these issues. Anyone who follows me on Twitter, if I just read out a few here, faggot, I'll stab your mum. Tommy, I'm going to get your family, I'm going to burn their faces, cut their heads off. Watch your time's coming, you white honky. I'm going to get your wife and your daughter. I'm going to kill your mum and light your house on fire. You see this knife? Have a good look. It's what's going through your throat. I have got hundreds upon hundreds of these.
I mean, I should just, for a degree of balance, Mr. Robbins, some of the recent EDL chants outside Downing Street last month. Yep. Muslim killers off our streets. Yep. There's only one Lee Rigby, of course, the sad case of the murdered drummer. And who the F is Allah.
Yeah, well,
so your members can also...
Yeah, no, what I'm making my point is that no one's been arrested for this. The police refused to do anything about this. I went into Bedfordshire Police Station and said, here's a threat to chop up my children. What are you going to do about it? They're not going to do anything. Whereas someone says a word against Islam online, and it's Tell Mama organisation, get solicitors and lawyers. I had Bedfordshire Police come and interview me about tweets that I'd made that are not racial or religious. They're just facts about Islam, and I'm getting investigated by the police when none of these are. There's a two-tier system. The rule of law has got to be implemented equally across all communities. And when you say about those chants,
yes, do you support your members chanting "Who the F is Allah"?
What I will say is I understand it. Every time we hear Allah Akbar, it is to do with someone getting butchered or murdered. That is not us. That's not our community that's destroyed the word God is great in Arabic. It's the Islamic community and members of their community that every time they plant a bomb or massacre or murder or rape, they scream Allah Akbar. People are angry at that phrase. So that's why people are coming out with that. So whilst we try and refrain people, because we do say, what you will do with saying that is you'll unite moderates behind the extremists because you're offending them as well. But I do completely understand why people are shouting that. If the worst songs people are singing at our demonstrations is "Get Muslim killers off our streets" and "Allah Allah," it's not really religious or racial to me. It's anger and frustration.
Mr. Mughal.
It is religious and it is racial prejudice when people go down and abuse people because of their faith or race. It is, and there are specific laws of this country, within this country, that don't allow that to happen.
Mr. Robinson would say the law isn't if the tweets.
Yeah, hang on. There are numerous cases that we look at where there is incitement online, where there are threats online, where there are from EDL members who hashtag EDL at the end of it, where there are targets towards Muslim communities. I'm not saying that there is violence and focus on either side. Look, let's talk fairness here. The fact is, Tommy receives, he says, these threats. They are unacceptable against his family and his children.
They're all against my wife and kids. They're never against me.
They're unacceptable. We have to say that they are totally unacceptable. And if there was attacks against Tommy physically, they're unacceptable.
But the police don't do anything. I've been on CCTV.
Okay,
I've been attacked on national TV.
Let me answer that. I've had physical threats made against me, and I've had tweets. But I've also found the same thing, Tommy. I've turned around to the Met and said, "Have you acted on my case?" And it's very slow, and I never hear back. So it's not a case of if Muslims jump, they get the responses. The fact of the matter is this. You have a right to speak. I have a right to speak. What we need to be doing right now is not fueling the rhetoric. The key thing here is not to fuel the rhetoric, is not to misuse and inflame the tensions. After Lee Rigby's murder, the best thing we can do is to say, okay, how can we come round the table together? As individuals, we're going to have to share the same spaces to live in. We're in the small island. What can we do to oust those who try to actually close down the space for your family's safety, or close down the space for the Muslim community's safety, or anyone else's safety? That's the key thing.
You represent non-Muslim working class people in England.
Yeah.
What's it like being a non-Muslim working class person in England at this time?
It's not good. Our youth are walking with their heads down, and that's it. They're feeling defeated by the time they're leaving school. There's no
defeated
in the sense that people are allowed to be proud to be of different ethnic minorities, whereas our youth are supposedly being bred through them is that they should feel ashamed. That's it. You should be ashamed to be English. You haven't got your identity. It's like they're taking it away. Even the history lessons that you see they're teaching in schools now, they're taking the Holocaust out. They're taking the Crusade history out, so they don't want to offend people. You're forgetting our history, and a country that doesn't know its history has no future.
And the solution? The
solution is to install from school a proud to be English. Muslim children should be proud to be English in this country. They should celebrate Englishness. Everyone should across the entire country, and we need to really promote it and stop labelling anyone that's proud to be English as a racist or a fascist. And anyone that wishes, if I criticise Scientology, no one's going to call me a racist or a fascist. Now, because I criticise the Islamic ideology, which is my God-given right as a man in this country, I should not have to live under 24-hour protection and fear and death threats on my kids and have to live a secret life. That's fundamentally wrong in this country.
Same question, Fiyaz Mughal, and I appreciate it's an extraordinarily broad set of people that you have to embrace, but life as a Muslim, and I appreciate there are many, many facets to Muslims, but in Britain today.
Life as a Muslim in Britain today is good. Life in Britain as a Muslim is good, and I'll explain why. And actually, I don't think many people actually feel the same way as Tommy Robinson here, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim. The fact is we have a free society. The fact is we have a proud country. The fact is I spent last night enjoying the Tudors, and actually getting into it means that lots and lots of Muslims here are proud to be English, proud to be Muslim, and proud to have a heritage of that. The other issue is nobody's taken out the Holocaust. If that was the case, the Holocaust Educational Trust would be on their back. The fact is we need to be proud of our history in this country, and we also need to say very clearly that groups like the EDL and groups like the other far-right groups.
The EDL is not far-right.
We believe it so. We believe it so. The groups like the far-right,
let's let Mr. Mughal have his wrap up.
Groups like the far-right and the al-Muhajiruns of this world need to actually stop being angry, mostly young men. If you want to do something, Tommy, I'll be right behind you. Give aspiration to young men. Give them a hope in this country, because actually being the victim in this area does not help their aspirations and their future employability and their future vision in this country.
Where's the hope of being in EDL, Mr. Robinson? Isn't it
you know your identity and you're standing up for something, and you're standing.
But where's the hope? Isn't it?
Where's the hope? The hope is that's all I get is message of support. We now have hope. We now see light at the end of the tunnel because these issues are being spoke about. Theresa May talking about.
But it's a party of conflict, isn't it, Mr. Robinson?
Right. No, it's not. No? It's not. It's an organisation, a community of people who are not prepared to sit back and watch our country rot.
So it is confrontation or conflict?
It's not confrontational. It's bringing these points to the forefront. Right. You know, Muslim grooming paedophile gangs that are now being smashed. They weren't being smashed till the EDL formed, till we set up in streets across this country and started telling people our daughters and our sisters are being pimped, groomed, raped. And,
it wasn't done by the police work in Derby and Rochdale and Sheffield and Nottingham.
Not prior to the English Defence League bringing it to the forefront, because there was a conspiracy of silence. We all know it's been accepted that they weren't dealing with them through fear of being a racist. So how come they then started dealing with them? Because we're bringing it to the forefront. Now Theresa May, I made a video where I spoke about radicalisation in prisons, and it went viral across this country. And then within 24 hours, she's on the news saying she's going to tackle radicalisation. So it works. And it's about putting pressure. And the fact that Ms Mughal sitting here now, and the fact that Muslim leaders are coming out, I watched the big questions, they are coming out and saying there's serious problems, it's working. It's working. And that's what we want. We don't want Muslims to leave this country. We don't want them to. But we do want them to understand how terrified we are of certain aspects of their ideology that needs to reform. Do you support freedom of religion, Mr. Mughal?
Absolutely.
So you support the opportunity for Muslims in this country to leave Islam and join Christianity?
Absolutely.
You do, yeah. See, your view is an extreme minority from the mosques and madrasas in this country.
Tommy, it's not.
Yes, it is, because that's why I went and had a meeting this week with a fellow Mohammed. His name was Mohammed, who's now in fear. He's one of 4,000 apostates in this country who have no help. They're isolated from their community. They're violent from their community.
I tell you what.
A wrap-up point because of time reasons.
I tell you what. This country we're proud of because it's the opportunity that people have and the chance to change if they want to. The fact is, Tommy, listen, you seem a decent guy. You seem to be reflective. The fact of the matter is, some in your group are extremely violent and some in your group foment this violence. We need to admit it. The fact
I admit there's racists in EDL.
We need to admit it.
Of course, I'm not being naive.
And how do you feel about that?
I don't feel good about it. Yeah. And there's racists we've got golfers in EDL. It's not a golf society. You know what I mean? We're not a racist organisation. There's racists in the Metropolitan Police Force.
We want to move forward. The key thing is to move forward here. You say you want to create change. Great. Other people want to create change. But Tommy, let's stop being an angry young man. Let's work with the people who can actually try to make a difference.
Who's going to work with the English Defence League? Who's going to work with working class representatives?
Listen, I tell you what,
would you two meet or speak regularly?
I meet with imams. I meet with Interfaith from Dewsbury. Fella comes down. I meet with quite a lot regularly.
Mr. Mughal?
As Tommy said, I'm happy to meet with anyone for the sake of this country and peace and stability. I will meet with anyone, but I will not meet with those people who attempt to create tensions for Tommy or myself or our families or other people.
And what have you learned about the EDL this morning?
Well, what I've learnt about the EDL is actually, I've always thought this before, Tommy seems to be a man at least, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of his views, but the fact is he's receptive. And the fact is, I think that your leadership, Tommy, is in a different place to the membership base, and that's something that needs to be considered. As I will say to the Al-Muhajirun, if we find people who are trying to cause tension, we will take them through the course of the law, and they need to go to jail.
I see that many of our membership in this country have a big class issue where if someone can't articulate themselves and their argument, their point doesn't matter, and they're called a far right. And the fact that we want to put everything in brackets to help people understand these organisations, it's like we're put in a bracket as far right. We're not far right.
And Mr. Robinson, what, if anything, have you learnt about Islam or about Muslim representatives?
Mr. Mughal seems like an extremely nice fella, but I don't see his views of freedom of religion, of blasphemy laws, as equal to the majority of Islamic organisations across this country. So,
all right, Tommy Robinson, Fiyaz Mughal, thank you very much for your time this morning.